Everyone, nice to see you. Happy Friday. I'm going to start the meeting by reading the preamble because of COVID-19, and then I'll ask everyone, I'll call your names and ask everyone to check in, say your name, and whether or not you're alone in the room. Okay, so good morning. As chair of the Exeter Housing Advisory Committee, I am declaring that an emergency exists, and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91A2 3B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more, I think that needs to be updated, 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome any members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner, under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. I'm going to start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, and when each member states their name, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting. Okay, that's done. So I am Nancy Belanger, and I am alone in the room. Next is Bob Mueller.
How about John Mueller?
What did I say, Bob? Oh my gosh, it was a late night. I'm sorry, my apologies. John
Mueller, I'm alone in the room.
Thank you. Pete Cameron.
Planning board rep, alone in my study.
Lindsay
Sonnet, I'm alone in my room.
I'm going to go through the other people that are here too. Sarah Reitzman.
I'm alone in the room.
And Robert Prine.
Nice work, Nancy. Robert Prine, I'm alone in my room, and I'm with the Rockingham Planning Commission.
That was quite a feat this morning. Thank you for the recognition. Okay, I think I've covered everybody that's on so far. So again, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. So I'll start out by apologizing if anyone noticed that my email a few weeks ago with the draft meeting minutes also had the agenda for from last January. So I corrected that and sent the correct one yesterday. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was July 10th?
Yes, I only found one small typo, end of paragraph B instead of Exeter TV. It's a YV.
Ah, hold on. I'm sorry, the last paragraph, the last sentence? Mm-hmm. We will follow up with a presentation to the residents of Exeter via a webinar. Oh, good girl. Got it. So that should be, sorry, Bob, Mr. Glowacki, TV. Thank you. Okay. Noted. Okay. Okay. So let's go to the next step here. I am not seeing anybody in the public, so we'll go to the next item on the agenda. So did everyone have a chance to review the video that Dave Sharples did in the introduction to the select board that occurred this past Monday evening? Is there any feedback on that? How did you think it went? Was it under the circumstances, of course, do you think it was a good first introduction?
I've told you this a few times now, but I thought the video and also your presentation to the select board was perfect, especially given all that was going on.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Anyone else?
Local TV stars.
Yeah, Dave did great. And thank you again to Exeter TV for helping facilitate that. We really appreciate it. It was a project of a year and a half or more. And we're glad to be able to at least get an introduction of all that work out there to the Exeter residents. So thank you.
I have a question for Robert, and that would be, are we tracking visits to that link to the site, I guess, as it is?
You know, that's a great question, and I don't think I can in any way, unfortunately. But let me look into that.
It'd be great if there was a little burst of activity after the presentation.
You know, actually, I'm looking at it now, and there's been a small amount of traffic on this site. So over the past week, there's been 42 views.
Nice.
And 51 in the past 2 weeks, and 0 before that, essentially.
That's great. So thank you to Sarah Reitzman, who actually posted that on her end, a link to that a few days ago, or was that yesterday, Sarah? I am just not.
It was yesterday.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you. That was a great post. And Exeter TV has also shared that video on their page. And we were also included in a Rockingham Planning Commission, I believe it's, oh my God, my brain just went blank. A newsletter type that Gwen English had shared to the planning board the other day. So everyone's helping to get the word out about the project. Do we have any thoughts about the next steps, how we want to go about further presenting this? We were talking about a town hall meeting for the public to come. That's not going to happen in the near future or anytime soon. A webinar possibly. This is where I had asked Bob Glowacki to comment and any thoughts he has about this. Do a kind of a virtual town hall maybe that we could all attend and answer questions. And
I'd be happy to talk about how a webinar could work if that's something you're. Yeah, so I mean, similar to how we do these meetings, we could do it, you know, as what this platform was built for, like a webinar with, you know, the Historical Society and the American Independence Museum recently. You can set it up so that you have to register in advance, and you can customize the registration process so that there's certain questions that you ask during the registration. If you want to, you know, gather more information about what people are interested in learning about, etc. We can do up to 100 people in the webinar, and that's, you know, panelists and attendees included. You know, I think it'd be pretty straightforward, depending on what your goal is of it. If it's to show off that the website, you could just kind of share screens and go through parts of the website, talk about, you know, why it's important and all of that. The attendees could raise their hand and we can have them ask questions. We could turn on additional features that we don't have on for the government meetings, such as a Q&A button at the bottom, so people can type in their own questions and stuff like that. We can also do polls ahead of time where if you sent me questions that you wanted to ask the public, such as, you know, did you know we have, or what X percentage of multifamily housing do you think, or housing is multifamily or something, then you could, you know, put 4 options and just see, do people know the right answer? Maybe they don't. You know, you can ask questions like that to kind of highlight some different things and make it interactive and fun, because you won't get what you normally would have in one of those listening sessions where you have someone with a big piece of paper up front writing stuff down. I mean, there's ways to do that digitally. You could have someone typing and taking all those notes and share the screen to show what people have given so far and stuff like that. But it would work pretty much the same way. I mean, instead of walking into the town hall, they would log on to their computer and click the link for the webinar. So, and then the benefit also is just like the meetings, we can record that We can stream it as well, so people could watch on Facebook or YouTube and on the channel, and they could comment and interact that way as well. What we do with the Historical Society, they have a person, a volunteer watching the Facebook stream, because people often comment on there, and so like they answer those questions on there, but they also answer questions in the webinar. And then you can also allow people to actually talk in the webinar, like we do in public comments. So a lot of different options, and I think the biggest question is, would people come? That's a big concern with these virtual events. So it's all about finding the people you want to try and get to go there, and how do you get that in front of them? Because if it's just like posting on the website, you probably aren't going to get it out there as much. So got to do some good outreach, I guess, to get people to come.
Okay. So I know in Zoom that there's an option to have the questions. It's kind of a little side chat room, right? Yep. So that works out great. I don't know how the Facebook Live question part would work. I try to watch all town meetings via Facebook Live just to see how many people, whatever. It's just a little thing of mine. But I've noticed lately a few people will comment, but nobody responds. So how would you do that?
I mean, with the town meetings, I mean, no one, the town, and I say the town, I mean committees that we stream, no one so far has decided to watch that and take those comments into account. But you would plan ahead to do that if you wanted to, as an option. So you could mark, and at the start of the webinar when we're streaming, you would say, type in your comments in the Q&A box. You can comment on our live stream. We're watching that and we'll respond. That means, it's a lot more engaging. Unfortunately, for a lot of our government meetings that people comment on, no one is watching that. So they almost feel unheard. But they could also, join the Zoom and participate that way. So.
Yeah, because the thing I thought about with the public comments on a Facebook Live is that it is a public comment, but when you're attending a select board meeting, they allow for that, but you have to state your name and your address. So that I'll have to think about that part, the logistics of that and how that would work. Okay, thank you, Bob. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Something we'd be interested in? Hi, John. I can see you wave.
That's the wave. I like the idea of a webinar. The other thing two thoughts I had. One was we had already strategized presenting it first to the select board. And so then the question is, what does the select board charge us to do? Should we present it to the planning board next, which is one of our thoughts. And then now that it's live, on the web, maybe it'd be nice to get an article written up in the paper. If someone wants to pitch the reporter about that. I'm still a paper guy.
Right. I will tell you, all Nico Papakonstatisa said, our chair of the select board after the presentation, was just to keep them up to date and let them know what the next steps were. So I know the planning board has seen the video. I can ask the chair about time to present, though I will tell you, as now an alternate to the planning board, I'm going to ask him what his thoughts are, the chair of the planning board, Langdon Plummer, because I'll tell you, they're very far behind with things that they need to hear right now. So projects have been pushed back for months for approvals for different things. So, but that's a good point, because we should be presenting to them also. And we did present our report to them also. So thank you. That's something that had not occurred to me. So I will check with Langdon Plummer on that too. I don't know about our articles. I am not the best writer unless you want to talk about legal arguments. So
how about an interview by the reporter? Say, here, this is live. We'll take you through it. What do you think?
Okay.
Sort of thing.
Okay. So, sorry, I have to take notes at the same time. So the other thing that I wanted to, the Q&A option of a webinar, there was one recently on one of planning department's projects that had to do with housing, asking about how many houses, what we had available for housing and things like that in town. So I'm going to talk to Dave Sharples about that and take a look at that question and answer and see if we could use that or do a new one that has that's similar for a webinar, to maybe send out a questionnaire, a survey. So would the survey be better to do it before a webinar or after?
What kind of a survey?
Just to ask generalized questions. I don't have any in my head off the top. Often, but what are you looking for multifamily, for density, do you know what we have available? I'd
say before. Yeah.
I was going to say, if I could jump in.
Oh, sure, Bob.
I mean, it depends, like, what's your goal with sending that out? And if it's just to, gauge where they're at, to inform what you want to talk about, I guess that you'd want to do that before. But if it's more of you're just curious and want to raise those questions with people, right. And then give them the correct answer or something, I would do that during the webinar.
Okay.
Or you can do that in the registration process for the webinar. You can ask those questions in the registration, and then you would have all of that for the people who signed up to be in the webinar.
I like that idea, Lindsay. I'm sorry. What were you saying before?
I don't know what I was saying.
It's
before.
Okay. It's Friday morning.
I like the idea of this. I'm struggling to come up with how we make it sort of interactive and interesting. And, there's no real solutions that'll come out of it. And I think that's what people want, are sort of action plans and next steps. And I'm struggling with that piece. But I love the idea of it.
Okay. So as far as an action plan, really, we did this in part for unknown reasons, right? We started out doing this as an educational thing, not only for our committee to know what we have available, to add the visual, but also the data that we put in under each photo, and to make it interesting. The history part of it. Mm-hmm. The former Nike building that's now apartments, things like that. The history behind a building, so that people can see possibilities, so. Right.
Maybe start the conversation about how do we see more of this,
Mm-hmm. Do we start with a historical story and maybe invite Julie Gilman to help participate in that, or the Historical Society? Do you think, I don't know if it would pique people's interest. It would mine, but that's just me. So
for some people, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That might be cool.
So I don't know. Could we maybe table this for our next meeting, just for everyone to have a chance to really think about an approach? If anyone has any thoughts between now and our September 11th meeting, if you could send me your thoughts, I could then kind of put them all in one document and send them out so we have that to talk about. I think it would help with the conversation. Is everyone okay with that?
Good plan.
Okay, great. Okay. So, and then the next thing that we have is the report to, we already did that. As far as our report to the select board, Dave Sharples was going to give us a memo. He's not on this morning, and I don't have that. He was going to do a memo of our recommendations and where we were at with those. So we're just going to push that off to the next meeting. And next is if Sarah Reitzman would like to tell us what's been going on regionally.
So we had a meeting in Newmarket a couple nights ago. So there's a citizen group that sort of pulled together. And I think it all started because there was a specific gentleman in Newmarket who wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit for a parent in a garage, but it was an existing garage, and the town wouldn't let him. And so he went to his state representative, and it became a thing. And now we're having this great conversation with some concerned Newmarket residents, and we approached the planning board and had a meeting about allowing detached accessory dwelling units as sort of like a first step. It was a really great meeting, and it was literally just a sort of informal, awesome gathering of like Newmarket citizens who are concerned about it and want to do something about it. And after the meeting was the planning board meeting, and several people from the first meeting went to the planning board meeting to speak up at public comment about accessory dwelling units, and it was really fantastic. So it's kind of just a first step, and this is new for us working with Newmarket, a community I've always wanted to work with, but have never been able to sort of get in with. So just sort of an update on what one of your neighbors is doing, taking some incremental steps forward toward, solving their housing crisis and being part of this, solution for the region.
Thank you so much. I was very interested to hear what you thought or what happened, because again, Newmarket is not our neighbor, but they're close enough, and we do try to focus somewhat on regional solutions too. So yes. It's always great to hear what other people in our area, other towns in our area are doing, are thinking about, talking about. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Robert, thank you again for joining our meetings, because as you know, your work too has been invaluable. The story map has been kind of a great thing. We're so glad it has happened. Keeping track of those views, that would be interesting. That was a great question, John.
I can send some statistics, every couple of weeks or something like that. I'll put a little thing on my calendar.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Yes, John.
So back earlier to Lindsay's point, and then with Sarah's, what she just mentioned, we're all looking for action plans, and a lot of work has been stalled with the Corona stuff. But the possibility of using this report as a resource anytime we have these sorts of conversations. I mean, Sarah, you were saying it was great to see the vigorous conversation in Newmarket. This report would be a resource when we have those sorts of situations in town. And as we attend planning board and select board meetings and questions of housing come up, we can raise our hands and say, hey, do you know about this report? It shows about the history. It shows about the integration of multifamily already in Exeter. So on an ongoing basis, it's a resource available to educate in those conversations.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. Thank you. Yeah, I know that, it's odd, but it feels like it almost, for me, it stifles my creativity on how to go about this via Zoom and things, Yeah, Sarah?
I was just thinking you all ought to know and would probably be thrilled to know that this map is inspiring other communities to do sort of similar projects. So one of the things that I talked about with the coalition leaders in New Hampshire Housing meet on a monthly basis, and we're talking about this idea of doing something like show us the housing that you love in New Hampshire, and doing some sort of map where like community members could submit pictures to the map. And we also talked about, I mentioned it in the Newmarket meeting, and they were really kind of excited about it because I talked about this idea of missing middle housing. And they were like, well, what if we did a map where we could show examples of like local examples of detached accessory dwelling units to show what they look like. So this map is already sort of starting to make its little waves.
Cool.
Right. Yeah, and the select board presentation was literally 3.5 minutes. It showed only a very quick preview of what this storyboard map has to offer. That's why I want to do a webinar or something so that we can show the whole map, go through it slide by slide, pause where we want to highlight things. So that's why I think it's important to continue and not just stop at the 3.5 minute video. It was a great first thing to do under the circumstances, but now it's time to get more in depth on what this project is about and why. So, anyone else have anything to add? Okay, well, guess what? It is 4 minutes before 9 o'clock and we are done. Oh, I see Pete Tan waving in the light there. Yes, Pete.
Nancy,
Yes.
as you are aware, and I think perhaps others may be, of this Gateway to Exeter project, which is, I think, going to have some impact with, with a number of affordable housing units. 25% of a 220 odd unit facility will be affordable housing under that project.
Yes, I think it was 244 units are proposed.
Which is a significant number. We're talking about 50 some odd units in the near term. And I'm just wondering, because eventually this is going to, well, as Nancy knows, and now the rest of you will know, we'll have a major hearing next Thursday.
Yes, the 20th.
On the Gateway to Exeter project. As part of, I don't think, let's put it, the impediment to that project going forward have nothing to do with the affordable housing aspect. There are other aspects, but the mere fact that there will be that many brand new affordable housing units coming on the market in next 2 years, perhaps. I think this is something that at least our committee needs to be aware of as we move forward. Yes,
I agree. So I'm encouraging anyone who can attend Thursday night's meeting. It's the 20th of August. It's on the agenda. The agenda is not out, of course, yet, but you can look for it on the town website. I'm sure it'll be there in the next few days. There are a few things that are going to start at the beginning that were postponed because of the lateness of last night, but it is on the agenda for the planning board for next Thursday. And Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but through the course of the other meetings on this project, I've only heard one person on the planning board voice concern that they didn't feel housing should be in the TIF because they didn't think it was in the spirit of the TIF being approved.
I think that's fair.
Okay, so I am not a voting member. I am an alternate and I am allowed to ask questions and things. So, but I'm not a voting member of the planning board. So if anybody would like to attend, or encourage other people to attend, because I agree with Pete, it is a huge boost for affordable housing, the possibility of additional affordable housing in Exeter. And I believe they're talking about it not just at 30 years, but 40. It has been approved. That part's not done, but I think I still had some questions about how many years.
What's being discussed exactly? Because, of course, this is the project I spoke in favor of. And does it make sense to say something again?
There's so many things, vernal pools.
So still just
traffic.
Going through those things.
Whether it be a light, the way the traffic should flow, the going in and out of this project, where the roadway should be.
The traffic issues are substantial.
They are. And
And
Pete is on.
if you will recall, well, you won't recall, but this project is located right across from the Exxon station, very near exit 9. So that there is the potential for a redo of exit 9. Well, that's my words, and don't ever quote them. But the state is involved because of exit 9 and the proximity of exit 9 to the traffic, the exit there, the traffic which will be coming out of this project. So there's still some major issues having nothing to do with the housing aspect of it, but there's some environmental issues and there's a major traffic issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a mixed use, but right now what's being proposed are 3 apartment buildings and then a commercial building that's closest to 20 Epping Road. And so right now what we're hearing is one of the main businesses that are going to go in the commercial building is a daycare center the YMCA wants to put in there. So there was a concern about the buses, the drop off, the pickup, things like that. So we're talking about children as part of this traffic concern, if you will. Mm-hmm. At least for me, that was one of my concerns is, of course it's for anyone, but we're talking about school buses and children being dropped off and picked up. So
I think that's gotten us a little off the subject, Nancy, but I think it's important.
No, it was to answer. Yeah, it's not just about housing. There's a lot to it. But Lindsay asked a really good question, and I think it's helpful for everyone to know the intricacies of that project. Because there's also the conservation part that I won't get into. But what was a possibility of adding 40 acres, but no parking for the public to access it. So. Anyway,
you'll learn more about vernal pools than you want.
I've been following it loosely and
the importance of each one individually and the offset of other areas that are protected. And you'll learn a lot about that. Yes,
it's an education.
It is.
Sure.
A good one. So Lindsay, did that help answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if it was sort of more of the same, and it sounds like it is. And of course, like I said before, I didn't really speak to the traffic concerns and the environmental impact, but was just speaking in favor of it because of the affordable housing.
Right. And there are waivers being requested that do have to do with the affordable housing part of it. Waivers on the recreation fee and Pete, I can't remember the term. It has to do with having recreational area. So they're looking for waivers on that. So.
Sorry for the digression.
No,
not at all. I think this is important.
It does interconnect with our committee here.
Oh, 100%.
Committee. So maybe not every aspect of it, but every project that has its nuances really can still connect to the housing part of it. So it's connecting the dots.
So is that meeting on the 20th going to be live in Town Hall?
No, we aren't having any meetings live. So you can go on the town website where the meetings are posted, and the agenda will have the link that you can call in to participate that way. Oh, look. Thank you, Bob. I'll let Bob, do you want to explain what we're seeing?
Just go to the minutes agendas page at exeternh.gov/meetings, and you can click on the agenda and scroll right here and click the link to join.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, and I think that also a little below the raised hand part, I think that's important to note. Because people calling in, I'm not quite sure if everyone gets that. I've answered that a few times during a live Facebook Live meeting for other meetings. But see, to raise your hand from your phone, you have to press 9. And then I think unmute is 6, is *6?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So, is that helpful? Good. Is there anything else that anyone wants to ask about or talk about or any other business? Okay, so if you guys could all think about the possibilities of this webinar, I think this is the next step. I really do. So how each of you might have some thoughts on how we would approach it. Send me emails with your thoughts as you have them. I'll just keep track of them. That's fine. And then I will, before our next meeting, I'll gather everyone's thoughts and put it in one document so we can go through it and have a discussion that way, if that works for everyone. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Well, everyone, enjoy your Friday, the break in the weather. It's a beautiful day.